So before we get started, I've got something very important to ask. If you could hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell, that means so much to me. These things are extremely important to YouTube's algorithms. And actually, only about 7% of the people who watch Against Tide Media's videos are subscribed. Now in the past 3 years we've been up, our channel has gotten about 500,000 views, which is incredible, but that's still pretty low in comparison to other YouTube channels who cover similar topics. And with truthful and meaningful projects like The Chosen, The Shift, and our own up-and-coming streaming series, Anti, we've got a lot to share about, and we could use your help in this journey. Thank you.
And so I get these 2 huge burns in my hand. So I'm running around, it's like, well, we have to finish the scene, so deal with it. So then at like 6 a.m., we finish shooting, and my mom's like, I should definitely take you to the ER to get your burn checked out. So we show up there, and I'm still in my costume with my hair all like this. And so the lady at the desk is like, so explain to me again what happened?
Hey, Against the Tide Media fans.
Welcome to Talking Back with Tera and Barb.
I'm Tera.
And I'm Barb.
You know what? If you like explosions, fire, catapults, all things War Room and Overcomer, you're going to love this interview. Aaron Burns, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be
here. Joining us. This is exciting.
Hey, we would love to just dive in and just find out what's been going on with your family and a little bit about just professionally, just projects you have going on.
Sure. Well, it's been a crazy year for me, as it has probably for you guys and everyone in the audience. For me and my family, I have 4 kids, one of whom is 3 weeks old. So we just had a baby daughter born. And so I have 6, 4, 20 months, and then 3 weeks old. So that's keeping us hopping. And then we just moved into a new house. We're here in Michigan a few weeks before she was born. And then last week, I got to do my first shoot of the year. So I've been doing a lot of development projects, some animation projects, but all of our on-location shooting has been postponed. So we're able to do a shoot with the Kendrick Brothers, which is a project that'll be coming out next year, one that I'm excited about. Can't tell too much more about that. But then I have a number of projects in development that, Lord willing, will be shooting next year. So it has been a surprisingly busy year. There was 1 week, I think in early March, I guess, where everything came to a grinding halt. And, I had 3 projects get canceled within days. And I said, Lord, what are you doing? What is your plan? But sometimes in my past experience, when the Lord closes a door, it's months before the window opens. But in this case, for me, it was such a blessing that right away these other projects materialized. We found ways to rearrange our work so we could keep working to develop and produce some great content. So, yeah, that's a quick update. It's been a busy season, but we're grateful for all that the Lord has done.
Tell us about what you do in the industry.
Yeah, so my job title on most projects is producer. And people say, well, what does a producer do? Is it like produce or like what do you So basically, depending on if it's a project that originated with me, the vision of the project, I call it the wouldn't it be cool if moment. That's typically when producers get involved. So some of the films I work on are my own wouldn't it be cool if idea. As you're praying through and thinking through things, one idea comes to the top and you say, this idea would be one that would be worth pursuing, worth turning into film. Other times, someone else prayed up the idea, and it's my job to come alongside them and support them. So we really, film projects, TV projects, they all have really 5 phases. So the first phase is development, and that's the phase that I really enjoy. So it's the most creative phase. Where all the biggest ideas, well, we could do it this way, we could do it this way, we could tell this story. How should we frame it? Who should be the cast? What should be the budget? What should be the release platform? When should we shoot it? Where should we shoot it? All those ideas are explored. And in the development phase, you're kind of setting up the scope of the whole project. And by the time you get out of development, you have a finished script, you have a distribution strategy, you have most of your team in place, you have your budget in place, you have your timeline in place, and you're ready to push the go button. So that's development. I'm trying to think of which ways you guys are looking. So development. Then the middle three phases are what we call production. So there's pre-production, production, and post-production. So pre-production is once you push the go button with development, then you're launched into the actual counting down towards when you're going to make the movie. Or if it's an animation project, you're hiring the artist and you're making the content. So that's pre-production is with the weeks leading up to actually shooting. And then the shortest phase of a film is the actual production itself. It might only be 30 shooting days or 60 shooting days on a longer independent film. And then you have post-production, which is a couple of months of editing, color correction, music, audio design, visual effects, and then deliverables, gathering all those things up and sending them off to the distribution. And then the final phase is distribution and marketing. And distribution is getting the film in front of your audience, and marketing is getting the audience in front of your film. So as the producer, I have the privilege of being along for the whole ride. And so I get to kind of make sure that idea, wouldn't it be cool if idea gets carried all the way from, on our desk, all the way to being in front of the audience. And you get to work with so many talented people in each one of those phases and trying to keep the project on schedule and on budget with the vision intact and deliver it at the end. So that's kind of what the producer gets to do.
Aaron, that was really good to hear. I have thick movie books, and you condensed a movie into that amount of time, or a book into that amount of time with great clarity. So thank you. So as a producer, one of the projects, Beyond the Mask. Mm-hmm. We love that movie as a family. Tell us about that.
That's been the most fun project that I've produced so far. Has definitely been Beyond the Mask. So that was a project that was born out of an idea to try to tell a story about identity and to try to tell a story that would appeal specifically to a younger audience and a more male audience. Because most of the films in our faith-based space over the last decade and a half have been more kind of in that Hallmarky genre. And it's been awesome over the last 5 or 6 years. We've really seen that expanding in a bunch of different directions. But most of the films targeted, even with films like War Room or Overcomer or, Fireproof and Courageous, marriage and fatherhood, these are things that are targeting people our age and above. But we had a passion with Beyond the Mask to make a movie that a 10-year-old boy would just love and want to watch over and over again. So kind of with that, it was a film that would reach, that movie was for me when I was a little kid and for my kids. So what specifically would you guys like to hear about?
Well, I just wanted to comment on that. I have a 13-year-old son.
Okay.
We have the DVD, but then when we didn't have the DVD available, we rented it. And then we ended up just buying it so we could have it digitally. Nice. But kind of a cool thing is for my husband's birthday in 2015, I took him to watch Beyond the Mask. And in fact, I have a screenshot of the ticket here. So it's kind of cool that,
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So we grabbed, I'll put it up there for a second more. So we went out for dinner on a movie on April 7th, 2015. So ever since then, and then once it rolled out, got the DVD and carried on. But when you're right, great movie, whole family loved it. One question is, with all the fire that was in that movie, any injuries there that happened on set?
So I have a better story about that for Pendragon. So let's save it for when we talk about that. Nothing super interesting happened on Beyond the Mask in that zone.
But there were some good explosions, some good fires, good stuff.
Yes. So let me tell you guys a little bit about that film. That was the second feature that I produced. And I would say our whole team was still young enough and dumb enough to not know what wasn't possible. So probably, the average age of the crew on that, we had like a bunch of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, people who just wanted to come out and be a part of the film. And so it was a pretty young and pretty inexperienced team, but so much heart and so much passion, and just a great group of people. And so many people on that crew are dear friends of mine still today. We work on a lot of projects together. But we we filmed the whole thing in Michigan. It was actually this time of year I guess probably 6 or 7 years ago now that we shot it. And we contacted a church in our area that owned this chunk of land and had some pole barns and things, and said, hey, can we borrow your backyard for our back lot? And so we built this huge windmill set and had volunteers coming over, getting scrap lumber from, the lumber yards. And we built a section of Philadelphia City Street. When we asked the mayor of Philadelphia, we didn't really do that, but if we could, in these historic locations, can we burn stuff up and blow it down? The answer was always no. So we wound up having to recreate these things. We built the back of a ship and all these different pieces, and then just had an absolute blast filming for a couple of months that fall. And then the visual effects was another big adventure to try to create this 1770s Europe and America here in Michigan. So it was so much fun and such an adventure to create that project. And I think it, as you were mentioning, it comes across on the screen. The people who watch it have fun along with us as they go on that ride. And hopefully, for those young people, we get letters and emails from people who watch it over and over and over again. And so our hope is that those themes that are layered in there about what makes me okay, what do I have to do to be good enough, that as young people, in the age of social media and the peer pressure that comes from constantly trying to massage our images for other people, that the gospel truth that you don't have to be good enough on your own, and you can't. But the good news is that Jesus can transform you and you can wear his identity. That was our goal, that we'd convey that in the film. And as young people watch it and enjoy the story, those themes would impact them at a deeper level as well.
The storyline was very intriguing and kept you going throughout, and loved the gospel message woven throughout, and then clearly presented at the end. That was pretty awesome. And the costuming, for such a young production, I just can't imagine what the costuming and the action scenes. There was a lot going on for such a lowish budget. I would assume low budget. A
very tiny budget. We had tons and tons of volunteers, and it really grew out of, I kind of got into the whole filmmaking thing almost by accident, that I had a dad who told me stories every night before I went to bed, and a mom who would give me good books to read. And we didn't, as kids, we didn't really watch a ton of movies and TV because there just wasn't that much out there that was, would be great viewing for us. But I had a deep love and passion for storytelling and for adventure and these things, even as I was a kid. So growing up, we started to make movies in our backyard, like a lot of people do. And I always would tease my dad that his greatest mistake was when he loaned us the chainsaw and said we could build a log cabin in the woods behind our house. So all of a sudden we had this log cabin built. We said, we got to do like a, cowboys kind of a movie, and, we're burning this thing down, and had this crazy adventure. And then every summer or, kind of spring break from there, we'd get together with our friends and our cousins, and we'd shoot another short film until, we said, hey, let's try to make a feature. And we made the movie Pendragon. And then a few years later made this movie Beyond the Mask. So, it started out as just a bunch of volunteers getting together, and my grandma always sewed us costumes when we were kids. And so my son now runs around, he's 4, he runs around in my George Washington costume that I had when I was, 4 and 5. Oh. And so my sisters learned how to sew from grandma, and we kind of developed the whole sewing team and just all the different things we just kind of did as a family, and it grew into something way bigger than we ever could have dreamed or imagined.
You have spoken just now of cousins and grandma and mom and dad reading and your own kids. Can you tell us a little bit about Burns Family Studios?
Sure. So as I was just relaying, it really was born out of just a spirit of adventure and storytelling when we were kids. And so now today, there's probably 7 or 8 cousins who were involved, 9 or 10 cousins, I guess, as you start to add them all up, who were involved in at the very beginning. And then now a number of them work in other professions. My sister, who was in charge of our costumes, now lives in Ireland, and she married a camp director at a Christian camp over there. But maybe we'll do a project in Ireland someday. Who knows? But there's kind of still a core group of us who still enjoy working on creative projects together and have some different feature films that we have in development as a team. But we've also gone out and helped a lot of other people with their productions as well. So just, I love working with, I always think to myself, it's really fun to work with people who are fun to work with. And I've enjoyed the blessing of working with my family. So my mom is a great organizer. She's an incredibly gifted organizer. And so she was organizing homeschool groups and children's church and all these things for years. And when we started doing movies, we started roping her in to be our production coordinator. And I just brought her down to Georgia to be my production coordinator, one of my production coordinators on the set with the Kendricks last week. So it's just fun to see how the Lord provides those different opportunities and different things that whenever you get to work with family, it's always a blessing.
So your first two productions, Pendragon and Beyond the Mask, those are period pieces. Mm-hmm. And is that a lot more difficult or than a modern day production, or?
Yes, the challenge of a period piece is nothing that you're looking at exists. Nothing that you want to show the camera exists today. Mm-hmm. So everything has to be reimagined and rebuilt and brought in. So from the costumes to the sets and the props, and people aren't driving cars, they're riding horses, and horses, even the saddles that horses had back then versus now, there's so many differences and details that you have to pay attention to. And so whenever you make a little quick change, let's have this different character come in, he's wearing the equivalent of a t-shirt instead of his dress clothes. Well, now somebody has to go sew that. So it requires a lot more planning in advance and a lot of research. But what I really enjoy about period pieces is the ability to take the audience out of our world and have conversations that you can have that you wouldn't be able to have in our world. So as a viewer goes in to watch a period piece, they say, that's how people did things back then. And they start to go on a journey with you. And then over the course of time, the humanity of the characters and the way that, they actually relate to us on a one-to-one basis. But the fact that we took them on an adventure and took them on a journey allows them to open their hearts and minds to engage in a conversation that they might not if it was just set in a modern day. So it's absolutely more work and more planning, but I think oftentimes the payoff is very much worth it. And it's just a lot of fun. It really is to create stories, adventure stories like that. So those are my favorite kind of movies to watch, and they're a lot of fun to make as well.
Adventure is the exact perfect word to describe those two movies, Beyond the Mask and Pendragon. They're just adventurous and fun and exciting. I want to tear into Pendragon, but before that, here you're currently working as a producer, but you were Artos in Pendragon. So you work behind the camera and in front of the camera. Do you have a preference? Are you happy to do either? So let's unpack that, and then we'll unpack Pendragon.
Sure. So I enjoyed acting. I did it a little bit in high school, with theater stuff, just a little bit, and then with our movies growing up. But the reason I played Artos in Pendragon is because we couldn't get anyone else who'd be willing to come weekend after weekend, summer after summer. So we wound up just casting ourselves. So all the lead actors are members of my family. So it was really more out of a necessity than passion. So I would be open to it, doing some more acting, but I really enjoy producing. And I think that's where my passion lies. So even other things like my sister and I composed the score, the music for Pendragon. And it's like, I love music and I studied music in college. I thought maybe I would want to be a composer, but then I was down in the basement 12 hours a day composing all by myself, doing what I love. But then I realized I was getting depressed, and it's like, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling so sad and lonely? It's because you're spending 12 hours in the basement by yourself. And I love being around people. So one of the things that I love about producing that I don't get from some of the other disciplines is the ability to have a team and the relationships and the discipleship and mentoring that you can both receive and give in that context, and the larger scope of what you're able to do in producing rather than acting. So I enjoy them both, but I think producing is definitely the calling that I'm most excited about. And writing as well. I really enjoy usually writing the stories for the projects that we do. So those are probably the things I enjoy the most.
Yeah. So you wrote Beyond the Mask, correct?
Well, so what we've enjoyed doing, and I've done this on quite a number of projects, 4 or 5 projects now, some that are still in development, is I'll write the story or work with a team to write the story. And then I always love to bring in another writer to write the screenplay. Because I think there's some people who are so specifically gifted with writing the dialogue and bringing the characters to life. But I really enjoy getting through what's called the treatment phase. So in that development that we talked about earlier, you start off with the kernel, the idea, the wouldn't it be cool if, and then you turn that into a log line, which is just a 1-sentence summary of your project. And then that turns into an outline. This is what's going to happen. And then a 1-page treatment, and then all the way up to a 10 or 15-page treatment. So I like to really be hands-on with the story through the first treatment. And then once you get into that, then I'd love to bring in writers to help take it from there into the screenplay, because there's people who are way more gifted at those things than I am. And that's one of the things I love about being a producer is I don't have to be the best at any job. I can just bring a friend who's better than me. And so I think filmmaking is absolutely a team sport, and I love bringing in that team together. But I really do enjoy and find fulfillment through helping to craft the story ideas.
It seems like you're also a pretty good teacher. You just unpacked that really well for us and explained that process. Pendragon. So it sounds like that was through your spring breaks and summer breaks.
Yes.
Unpack for us a little bit about Pendragon, and then maybe at the end, let us know if someone wants to watch Pendragon or Beyond the Mask, how we best can watch it.
Absolutely. Well, Pendragon is available on christiancinema.com. So it's actually the edition that's on there is one that we just re-released a couple of years ago with updated audio, and we cut out some of the cheesier scenes, which I'll get to in a second. But then Beyond the Mask is available right now on Amazon Prime, and you can download it on Amazon, and I think it's on Christian Cinema as well. So probably Amazon or Christian Cinema would be great places to look for those films. Mm-hmm. So with Pendragon, it was originally going to be, it was like senior year in high school, we had the idea, and we were like, we're going to work on it for a year or two in college and make a movie. Let's make a feature film. Wouldn't it be fun? The difference between a short film and a feature is substantial. And again, we were too dumb not to know what couldn't be done. So we kind of made a spreadsheet with our plan, and we jumped into it. And it wound up being 4 years and quite a bit of effort later. But just seeing the Lord show up over and over again, and again, you watch the final movie, and it's definitely let me put it this way: you can't make your second movie first. So everybody has to start somewhere, and I think you'll enjoy watching it.
I did enjoy watching it.
Yeah, and enjoy seeing some of the rookie mistakes that we made as well. But we built the hill fort that you'll see. There's this big battle that takes place in the opening scene. We built that in the backyard at my backyard at my parents' place. So the house is right there, and right behind it is this hill fort. So we, it was literally me and my cousins and my family, and then volunteers from all over the community who would come in and say, "You want to be in a movie? You want to help us out?" Sure. So we had the costume sewing department and the set construction department. I remember one time we were heading to Sunday night church, and we said, we need to get the wood for the catapult. So let's pick it up so me and my cousin were dropped off at Home Depot to buy the wood for the catapult. And then the van pulled around a little while later to pick us up. And we had a pile of wood that was like 8 feet high and 20 feet long. It's like, this isn't going to fit in the van. But just those adventures of then getting to build this thing and launch fire bombs across the neighborhood, it was definitely an adventure. And one night I remember I was playing Artos, and I had, my makeup on and my hair all poofed out, and we were filming this scene where I'm running through the fort getting attacked by firebombs. And my job was to also run half of the fire effects. So we had these aluminum pans, and we learned all about the properties of explosives, that if you just stick a match in a can of gasoline, it blows up. But if you stick a match in a can of diesel, it goes out. So if you do like half gas, half diesel, you can light it and it kind of burns for a little while.
Oh, no.
So yeah, don't try this at home. Please don't. If you do, make sure you have production insurance to cover it. So I poured in, so we had these little aluminum pans, and aluminum cools really quickly. So if it's been out for even just a few seconds or, a few minutes, you can grab it and just move it. So I'm dressed up in my, my costume and all this stuff, and running around, pouring the gas and the diesel and lighting these things. And like 2/3 of the way through the night, I grab one of the pans that had just gone out. And so I get these 2 huge burns in my hand. So I'm running around, it's like, well, we have to finish the scene, so deal with it. So then at like 6 a.m., we finish shooting, and my mom's like, I should definitely take you to the ER to get your burn checked out. So we show up there, and I'm still in my costume with my hair all like this. And so the lady at the desk is like, so explain to me again what happened. And it's like, just take a look. It's too much. I can't, So anyway, those are those kind of, or sometimes our neighbors would pull up lawn chairs just to watch us filming. And what are these kooks up to? So we had a lot of fun making it, and a lot of good memories, and so many people who helped us. And then to see, though, this movie we made in our backyard, I think this was a pivotal moment for me, because I went from, it was just a hobby. It was something that was something that we enjoyed doing. But then I was in college and was either going to be a music pastor or an entrepreneur and start my own business. And so I'm working on my master's degree in entrepreneurial marketing, taking this class, and the professor put up what he called a unique space map. So it's this big diagram, and it's a tool to analyze businesses, and how if you're going to start a business, you have to be different. And so I'm thinking, well, what could I do? And I remember at that moment thinking, we already have a business, which is the business's ministry of filmmaking and of trying to tell these adventure stories and to reach our generation with the hope of the gospel. So the Lord really turned it for me from something that was a hobby and something that was fun and adventure, and really started working in my heart and showing me the potential impact that a project like this could have. So Pendragon, this tiny movie we made, was all of a sudden, on TV and in 4 languages, German, Spanish, Portuguese, English, in a dozen countries around the world. And we're just sitting here shocked, saying, a place that I could never go, people that I could never talk to, our films can go and can share that message. And now with Beyond the Mask, it's in, 70 countries, give or take. And it's countries like Saudi Arabia and Turkey, places that are more close to the gospel, and that we donate money to send missionaries to. And so we can also send our stories. And it's such a powerful medium of our time to be able to send these stories all over the world. And Lord willing, he'll use them. So that was neat for me to see what could start with such humble beginnings, what the Lord can do as we're willing to serve him in those ways.
That's really exciting. That's some good stuff. So let's maybe go into modern day and talk about your projects that you've done with the Kendrick Brothers. How did you get connected with the Kendrick Brothers?
So we met them, I believe, at a film festival probably 10 years ago, just after we were making Pendragon. And they kind of saw us finish that film. And then Stephen graciously provided some mentorship to us during the process of making Beyond the Mask. He helped us with the script a little bit and also sat on a board of advisors. And so if you have any, he actually encouraged us to set up a board of advisors as young filmmakers. So if there's any young filmmakers watching, that's a piece of advice that I'd love to pass on to you. That's find some godly men and women. And on that board was my pastor and my dad and my cousin's dad. And there was only one filmmaker. Stephen was the only filmmaker on it. But it was these godly mentors who we could go to for advice. And so he provided advice for us along the way. And then we finished production on Beyond the Mask, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come and help me with the next movie that I have?" And so I was jumped on as associate producer on War Room, and then did their post-production supervision for them, and then ran with them the whole project for Overcomer, and then 2 more that we have in development now. So it's just been such a joy to work with them. They are so humble, and they love the Lord, and the things that they talk about doing in their movies, they actually do in their homes as well with their families. And so I'm just very grateful to the Lord for providing Stephen as a mentor and a friend to me, to help me and to get to work on their projects and to see the impact of a movie like War Room has just been absolutely exciting and phenomenal.
You know, Aaron, when we were at the Christian Worldview Film Festival, we were at a question and answer panel. And speaking of mentor, everyone was sitting down and a question was posed and you answered it and you stood up and you kind of put a hand forward and back. And I don't know if the fans can see that. And you're like, everyone should have kind of like a mentee, someone that they're helping, and a mentor that they're looking up to. And that really resonated with me. And I appreciate just your strength and your humility both just were so evident as you shared that. And is that something that you still currently kind of practice, having someone that you're kind of mentoring in as a mentee? And your wording might have been a little different.
Yes. So the foundation of Christian community is discipleship. And it begins in the home as parents disciple their children. And in the church, the church isn't designed to be a professional up on the stage who speaks to you once a week. Preaching the word is obviously incredibly important, but it's the relationships and the discipleships. And you see Jesus, who spent so much time pouring into people, and then they pour into others. And I've seen, I've had in college, as I was mentioning earlier, as the Lord was working on me, there was one individual who kind of grabbed me by the ear and said, "Okay, I'm going to mentor you. You're going to get up at 6 a.m. and come to this pre-Sunday Bible study, and we're going to pray together and all this stuff." And I was like, okay. But he just taught me about leadership and introduced me to good Christian literature and introduced me to, how to really get into the word for myself and challenged me. What are you going to do with your life? This stuff that your parents believe and your church talks about, is it real for you? What are you going to do with it? And so I can see I've had so many mentors throughout my life that have just made such a difference to me, including, my dad, and then some of these filmmakers and one or two other men that I would just dear friends and people have poured into me. So I couldn't stress highly enough the importance of mentorship and discipleship for our culture today. But for young filmmakers who are out there, again, I would encourage you have something to share as well. You might only be this far from the starting line, but you've already gone that far in your journey. So don't think, oh man, I need, the Kendricks or the Irwins or some big shot out there to help me. First, think about how you can help and who you can go back and you can pull along, and then be willing to ask for help. And both in filmmaking and in life, mentorship is so important. So, look for people who can provide you godly counsel in your day-to-day decisions and hold you accountable to those things. So, absolutely, I would encourage that. And it's something that I have a number of young filmmakers that I love to correspond with and try to give feedback to. And, time is short, so you can't do it for everybody, but there are some people that you can. And then my hope and prayer is that they will in turn reach out to the next generation. It looks much more like a group of people holding hands than people chasing each other off into the sunset. So something I'm very passionate about.
That's great. Yeah, I really enjoyed. I went back and listened to your talks at this year's film festival, at the Christian Worldview Film Festival, and then I listened to some of your talks from a couple of years ago. And I recommend that people join that guild and listen to some of your talks and some of the other talks. They were just great. They're just for all walks of life, not even just filmmakers, but but some of the lessons that you taught and some of the lessons that you've learned were just, they're just awesome. I learned a lot, and I'm way older than you are and can always learn. So that's really great.
Yeah, Barb. And I did the same. I went back and re-listened to your talks from the Guild because of how deep they were, and you're a good communicator and a good teacher and such good value. And I took notes, and I wanted just to dive in deeper. So it was incredible, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad it was helpful to you. I think a lot of things that we learn through suffering, and the Lord teaches us and humbles us and uses the hard things in our life to teach us. So anytime that we can learn from other people's suffering rather than our own is wonderful. And I love that film festival. I love the opportunity to share things that God is teaching me, and would definitely recommend. It's called the Christian Worldview Film Festival. Just a great event, whether you're a filmmaker or just want to watch some great Christian films and be there to cheer on people who are in the industry. Would highly recommend that event. And what I love about it is the humility that is there. Most film festivals are about, look at me, look at my films, look at my awards, and that's not at all the case there at the Guild and Film Festival. It's about encouragement and lifting each other up. So would definitely recommend that event.
It was great.
Do we want to dive into lightning round?
Oh, sure. You talk about giving advice. What's maybe 2 sentences of what advice would you give to an up and coming filmmaker?
Don't do it. It's way too much work. It's so stressful and so hard. No, I would say put on your armor. If it's something that the Lord has called you to do, then as was the message of Pendragon, what God calls you to do, he'll give you the grace to accomplish. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, and you will need his provision and his help. And don't try to do it on your own strength. If you're trying to get rich and famous and have a big platform to promote your own self, it's not going to work, and it's not going to be worth it. So plan and pray and put good supports in your life. Have those relationships in your local church and with your own mentors and those kind of things, because it's not going to be easy. But as if the Lord's called you to do it, then he's going to provide. And so look for him to do that. And come to the Christian Worldview Film Festival. That would be my some advice that I'd give.
Yeah. Great advice. If you're not making films, what do you like to do for fun, or what's a hobby you enjoy?
I love anything outdoors. So I love hunting. I'd always go hunting with my dad. We tap maple syrup trees, and me and my boys will make maple syrup, from our own maple trees, which is fun. So, and cooking. My wife and I, we love cooking and smoking meats and having people over for meals and stuff like that. So those are probably, and again, with 4 kids in filmmaking, you only have a little tiny bit of time for hobbies, but things like that, things that involve being outside in creation and making yummy things to eat are probably my hobbies.
So during COVID, have you binge watched anything on TV or?
I wish I could say that I have, but not too much. And no series or anything that I've watched a ton of, I would say.
Do you have a favorite food?
A favorite food?
Or smoked meats?
Smoked meats. Yes, I would say smoked meats. That works.
What would you have done? Did you answer? What would you have done if you had not gone into filmmaking? I
would probably either be a music pastor or a small business owner of some kind, I would guess.
Life verse?
Let's see. Life verse. Psalm 37:4 talks about trusting the Lord and him giving us the desires of our hearts. And that's one that I have as a filmmaker. I have a lot of desires of these projects that I want to do and these passions that I have to do these things. But as we trust the Lord, we delight ourselves in him, then he winds up opening the right doors for us. So I would never have charted out my life to look like this. Like, this wasn't my dream. This wasn't my plan. But as you look back, it's like, I love doing this. And I was talking with my wife just a few days ago that it's like, I couldn't really imagine doing anything else. This isn't what I planned, but it's what the Lord planned is. As you seek him and you trust him, then you delight yourself in him, then he starts to give you these desires and starts to just allow you to walk in the things that he's called you to do. So that's probably my life verse if I was going to pick one.
And what true to life story would you like to tell?
Well, I was sharing with you guys just before the call. I love true life stories, and I have I have like 4 that we're developing right now. But one that we're just announcing, there's the story of a missionary, a guy named Hudson Taylor, who in the 1860s went from England to China. And it's at the height, just after the Opium Wars, just after all this terrible stuff that Westerners are doing to the Chinese. There's all this conflict and all this tension. And Hudson Taylor steps right in between these empires and presents the hope of the gospel in very self-sacrificial ways, very adventurous things that he's doing. But super fun story, and we're just finishing the script with that project. And I got to meet the group that Hudson Taylor founded is called the China Inland Mission, and they've changed their name and changed their identity a number of different times due to different changing circumstances with communist China and things like that. But the group that's trying to produce the movie is called Half Crown Media, and Jamie Taylor, who's the great-great-great-great-grandson of Hudson Taylor, is on their team. So getting to meet with him and seeing pictures of Hudson Taylor's Bible and the things that he prayed for and seeing those prayers fulfilled. And even now to be a part of answering those prayers 150 years later with trying to retell his story is something that's been really fun. So we're just launching, kind of announcing that project here and starting to hopefully move forward with it. Now, again, it's still in development phase, so it's probably still a number of years out, but it's just a great story, one that I read as a kid, and then to get to be introduced to that team that wants to make it and to be able to help them. So I got to go to Singapore just before COVID hit and meet with their team and start the development process with them. So those are the kind of stories that I love, true life stories of gospel impact with a little bit of adventure thrown in. So those are my favorite stories.
I also read a Hudson Taylor story as a kid before a missions trip. Life-changing. Other projects coming up that you want to relay to the Against the Tide Media fans?
We have 3 more projects in development that will hopefully shoot next year. Well, not all of them will, but a few of them will. So unfortunately, there's no more ones that I'm able to publicly share about that. But there is a true life story that we're working on with the Kendricks. And that's a very applicable to our modern day, dealing with a lot of issues that we deal with today. And it's a true life story. So I'm excited about that one. And then I have another true life story that we're developing with my Burns family team. It's an adventure story set and another story set way in the past, but it's a true story of great gospel impact as well. So stay tuned, and we so welcome your prayers. As we were talking about earlier, it's very challenging to make films, and they don't want to get made. Movies don't want to get produced. And so just would welcome and covet your prayers for me and for other people who are in our industry. And it's been really encouraging to see the last 5 or 6 years, all of the films that have been coming out and TV shows and things. But yeah, just it's a joy to be a part of it, and would welcome your prayers.
Aaron Burns, thank you for hanging out with us today. It's been a joy to get to know you, your projects, and it's been fun.
Yeah, and
thank you, Barb and Tera.
Have you back. We can have.
I
you
would
back
love
when
to.
These projects get made.
When we get a little closer to release on some of these, I would love to come and tell you guys more stories and spend some time. I'm grateful for you guys.
Sounds awesome. Thanks so much, Aaron.
And like 2/3 of the way through the night, I grab one of the pans that had just gone out. And so I get these 2 huge burns in my hand.